Bubba Wallace just came forward about something that has been eating away at him throughout the entire season. And honestly, after you hear his complete reasoning, you might find yourself nodding along with every single word he delivers. The 2026 campaign has been genuinely difficult for the 23XI racing competitor. While his teammate keeps collecting victories at a historic and almost unbelievable pace, Bubba finds himself grinding through the schedule, just searching for any kind of consistent momentum. And now he is speaking publicly about the one specific thing inside NASCAR that has been irritating him deeply with each passing race weekend. Let us establish exactly where Bubba currently stands in the championship picture. He is sitting in 12th place within the NASCAR Cup Series standings. That positioning is not where he envisioned himself at this point in the season, and it is certainly not where the people who follow and support him expected things to be standing either. He has managed just one top 5 result through the opening portion of the year. 5 top 10 finishes are on his record, but when the genuinely critical moments have presented themselves, he simply has not been able to convert them into the results his talent level suggests he should be producing. He remains hopeful that a turnaround is approaching, but the overall picture has been genuinely inconsistent and frustrating to navigate. Now here is where the situation becomes particularly layered and interesting to examine. His teammate Tyler Reddick has been operating on a completely different competitive planet this season. Reddick drives the number 45 car positioned right alongside Bubba's number 23 within the same 23XI racing organization, and he currently leads the entire Cup Series championship standings by an enormous margin. The man has collected 5 victories across just 10 competitive starts this season. Allow that specific number to register properly for a moment. 5 wins in 10 starts. Reddick has actually accumulated more victories entirely on his own than every other driver currently sitting inside the top 5 of the standings has combined between all of them. So Bubba finds himself in the uncomfortable position of watching his own teammate absolutely dominate the sport from the inside while he battles through the middle portion of the running order, searching for meaningful answers to his performance questions. Right in the middle of navigating this challenging and uneven season, Bubba sat down with the Athletic publication for a 12-question interview session. During that conversation, the interviewer raised a topic that completely opened the floodgates on something Bubba had clearly been wanting to address for quite some time. The question itself was deliberately casual and conversational in its framing. They simply asked him to identify the pettiest thing that irritates and annoys him during a typical race weekend. Bubba did not require any thinking time whatsoever before responding. The answer was already fully formed and waiting to be delivered. His primary frustration? Short-track racing environments. More precisely, the chaotic and rushed scramble that unfolds when drivers are required to select their preferred restart lane immediately before competition resumes following a caution period. Let us explain how this procedure actually functions for anyone who may not be deeply familiar with the current NASCAR rulebook. When a caution flag appears and the race needs to restart, every driver participates in a procedure officially called choose time. Essentially, during the lap immediately preceding the return to green flag racing, each individual driver must commit to their preferred restart lane, either the inside position or the outside position. The concept sounds straightforward and clean in its basic description, but according to Bubba, the reality of executing it at short track facilities has been descending into genuine chaos on a consistent basis. Here is the precise language Bubba used to describe the situation. He called out the mad scramble that develops at short track, specifically when choose time arrives. At Martinsville, he described the entire field rushing desperately to navigate all their cars through the designated choose zone in time. He questioned why NASCAR does not simply initiate the choose procedure with 2 laps remaining rather than leaving it until the final possible moment. He identified Bristol as experiencing the exact identical problem and asked the same pointed question about why the current rushed approach continues to be the standard. So Bubba is specifically naming 2 particular facilities here, Martinsville and Bristol. Both fall into the short track category, which means individual laps are completed at a considerably faster rate than at larger oval or superspeedway facilities. Drivers have dramatically less time and significantly less physical space available to execute their lane selection decisions comfortably, and Bubba is describing an environment where every competitor feels like they are scrambling frantically, trying to get through the choose zone before the available window closes on them. His proposed solution carries a quality of obvious and reasonable simplicity. Simply extend the choose procedure to begin 2 laps out rather than 1. Provide every driver with a slightly more generous amount of breathing room to make their strategic lane decision without the frantic urgency currently defining the experience. But Bubba was absolutely not finished expressing his frustrations with the existing procedure. He had a secondary complaint prepared, and this particular one addresses road course configurations specifically. He pointed to the physical placement of the choose cone on road course circuits as a separate and equally problematic issue. According to his description, that cone is positioned uncomfortably close to the start-finish line at specific facilities, including COTA located in Texas and Sonoma situated in California. Both of those road course venues feature multiple long and clearly defined straightaway sections that could logically and comfortably accommodate the choose zone at an earlier and more practical point on the circuit. Instead, the cone remains positioned toward the very end of the available space, forcing drivers to delay their lane commitment until literally the last available fraction of a second before the decision window closes permanently. This is not merely a matter of driver comfort or personal preference. Waiting until the absolute final possible moment to commit to a lane choice creates genuinely unpredictable and potentially hazardous situations on the racing surface that could easily contribute to incidents that would otherwise be avoidable entirely. Then, Bubba delivered one final and particularly vivid detail that truly illustrates just how significantly this issue impacts drivers who find themselves restarting from positions deeper in the running order. He described the experience of restarting from somewhere near the back of the pack and only reaching 3rd or 4th gear by the time his car arrives at turn 3. Think carefully about the specific picture that description creates. The drivers restarting at the front of the field are already operating at full racing speed and circulating the circuit normally, while competitors positioned further back in the running order are still working through their lower gear ranges, simply trying to accelerate their cars up to racing pace. The entire field is effectively operating at dramatically different speed levels simultaneously the moment the green flag waves to resume competition. The leaders are thundering around at maximum velocity, while the tail end of the field is essentially still launching from a standing start. That dynamic does not feel like fair or sensible racing, and Bubba is being absolutely explicit that this represents a meaningful and legitimate problem deserving proper attention and correction rather than a minor inconvenience to simply be accepted and endured. The most genuinely compelling element of this entire conversation is what happened when the reporter conducting the interview responded to Bubba's complaints. Jeff Gluck was the journalist posing the questions on behalf of the athletic publication, and rather than simply moving to the next prepared question, he jumped in to actively validate and support exactly what Bubba had been describing. Gluck confirmed that from his vantage point in the press box, the phenomenon Bubba described is clearly visible to outside observers as well. The leading cars drift through the choose procedure at a relaxed and unhurried pace. Then suddenly, the entire remainder of the field realizes simultaneously that they need to accelerate urgently to catch the group ahead. The whole compressed pack then lunges forward together, and the green flag waves to resume racing before everything has properly settled and organized itself. That external validation matters considerably in this specific conversation. This is not simply Bubba venting frustration because his personal season results have not aligned with his expectations or ambitions. This is an observable and documented phenomenon that trained outside observers positioned above the racing surface can identify and confirm with their own eyes from the press box. The leaders enjoy a comfortable and leisurely choose experience while everyone behind them scrambles chaotically to catch up in time. The compressed pack then hurtles back into racing conditions without adequate spacing or organization. That combination of factors represents a genuine accident creation scenario that deserves serious examination from a pure safety perspective. Consider the safety dimension of this conversation seriously for a moment. NASCAR has invested enormous resources and decades of sustained effort into making competition progressively safer for everyone involved. Car designs have been fundamentally reconsidered. Barrier systems have been completely reimagined and rebuilt. Rule structures have been repeatedly adjusted with safety improvements as a primary motivating factor. Yet here is an operational procedure that both active drivers and credentialed media observers are publicly identifying as unnecessarily chaotic and potentially dangerous. One miscalculation or misjudgment during one of these compressed and frantic restarts could very realistically trigger a significant multi-car incident that injures competitors. It is also worth considering the broader timing and context of why Bubba is raising this particular issue at this specific moment in the season. He is sitting 12th in the standings. His teammate is winning races at a historically unprecedented pace. External pressure to improve his own results continues building with every successive weekend. So when restart procedures become chaotic and place him in compromised positions on the racing surface, every single one of those moments carries amplified weight and consequence. For his championship situation, a poor restart experience at a short track can represent the difference between a valuable top 10 result and getting collected in somebody else's incident through no fault of your own positioning or decision-making. The choose rule itself represents a relatively recent addition to NASCAR's operational procedures when viewed against the full length and breadth of the sport's history. It was deliberately introduced to restore agency to drivers during restart situations. The underlying philosophy was genuinely sound and well-intentioned. Drivers deserved the opportunity to select the lane that best suited their car's characteristics and their strategic situation rather than having their restart position entirely dictated by track position alone. That foundational idea remains valid and worth preserving. But Bubba is demonstrating through specific and documented examples that the current implementation carries real operational problems that undermine the original intent of the rule. His proposed adjustments are remarkably uncomplicated and accessible in their scope. Extend the choose window at short track facilities to begin 2 laps before the restart rather than 1. Relocate the choose cone at road course venues to an earlier position on longer straightaway sections, so drivers are not forced to make their commitment at the absolute last possible moment. Neither suggestion requires fundamental restructuring of the rule itself. Both represent targeted and practical refinements that could meaningfully improve the experience and safety for every competitor in the field without disrupting the core philosophy the rule was designed to establish. Bubba chose one of the most widely read and respected sports journalism platforms currently operating to make this specific case publicly. He arrived with name tracks, specific mechanical details, and a reporter who validated his observations in real time during the conversation itself. That combination represents about as compelling and credible a public argument as any active driver could realistically assemble and present. And if additional drivers begin adding their voices to this same conversation, the cumulative pressure on NASCAR to formally address and respond to these concerns will grow. Considerably harder to continue deferring or dismissing entirely. What elevates this story beyond a simple driver complaint is the deliberate choice Bubba made to speak up at all. He could have kept his head down and directed every available unit of energy toward improving his own individual results. He already carries more than enough personal challenges to manage, with Reddick dominating the championship picture and his own finishing results consistently falling short of his established expectations and personal standards. Instead, he deliberately chose to use his public platform and his credible voice to identify a problem that affects every single driver competing on the circuit, regardless of where they are positioned in the running order or how their personal season is progressing. That choice demonstrates a quality of thinking that extends well beyond personal self-interest. He is examining the racing product itself, the physical safety of every competitor sharing the track, and the structural integrity of how the sport currently operates at a procedural level. Regardless of whether NASCAR ultimately agrees with his assessment or chooses to implement any of his suggested modifications, choosing to speak with that kind of broader perspective and genuine concern during a personally difficult stretch of competition communicates something meaningful and significant about the competitor and the person that Bubba Wallace genuinely is.